Alright guys, today we're on a Z930M, and this is a problem that is common. Well, not really common, but it's common, enough for me to show you guys what it is. Sometimes this is an easy fix. On your hydro, you might have it sometimes where it stops working after about 30 minutes to an hour of cutting. If it starts getting weaker then and starts whining, change your oil first. Check the oil, probably got some water in the oil. Hopefully, if you catch it early, you're not going to damage anything inside. But on this particular mower here, what's going on is it will move fine as long as you push the lever gradually forward. If you move it fast, all of a sudden it won't go. And I'm going to show you a demonstration of that, and then I'm going to show you why it's doing that. So after I got the unit back in my bay, I noticed that I had a little bit of oil leak. So after I got it jacked up on some jack stands, I take a peek underneath here and I see the slightly oil leak on the right side, given the one giving trouble. This is the one giving trouble on the right side. But the oil leak is really bad on the left side. I mean, it is really bad. A lot of buildup, dirt. This one's got an oil leak too, not as bad. And the right side is the one giving trouble, but this one's got some issues going as well. So I'm trying to see where it's leaking oil from exactly, and I can't really pinpoint a location. I'm going to assume at this point it's leaking right underneath from that seal, right underneath that drive belt pulley. So what I'm going to do, basically, if I were to reseal this, I know this customer is going to want to do it and at least get a accurate quote on repairing it. So I went ahead and just pressure washed it. Now, a tip for pressure washing it, I just want to get all that dirt and buildup off of there, just good enough where I can get to the bolts. But you can take this little cover off that I just showed, and you can really get your pressure washer down in there to get all those big chunks of dirt out of there. I'm just basically trying to get it as clean as possible to make it easier to unbolt this thing, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and take out both of these hydros. So the first thing I do is loosen up the drive belt pulley. Now I went ahead and just took the tensioner off. They're real easy to do. This so I could check that pulley and those bearings, and they're fine. So I proceed. I need to take the belt off, get it out of the way. And right now I'm going to move this, try to move this up and down. And this is surprising me right now. So I was expecting that pulley to be spinning on that shaft. And I'm kind of thinking now, I'm like, okay, well, that thing was leaking oil so bad. Let me come up here and check the oil level. Maybe that thing's just out of oil. And I'm like, well, it's out of oil. So hopefully that's the reason. So I refilled it with oil, drove it, and it was still giving problems. And I believe this is after. This is still water. I'm showing this is new oil. I filled it up, ran it a little bit more. I mean, I unjacked it. I'm showing you how much oil. I'm looking for metal in there. I'm not seeing any metal. So I take the filter out. This is a brand new, I can't remember if this was the new filter. Now this is the first filter. Nope, no metal in that one. I drain them both out, but they both have, it's quite a bit of water in that oil. And on this particular unit, I did change the oil and drive it again. So now I decided to go ahead, I got to remove this thing. So the first thing you want to do, there's a little, this is for the brake. Take some needle nose pliers, it's a little funky little pin in there. You'll have to get a good grip on it and kind of turn it and twist it. Sometimes I could do this just with my finger if you can see it really well, but this one's so dirty I can't tell which way's what. So I'm getting my needle nose in there and twist it, pull it out, and that's what it's shaped like. And they're real easy to do, operate. They work really well, but you just got to know how it's in there. Then the next thing you need to do is take off that nut right there. That's for that's pretty much the control lever arm. And I suggest I always put my stuff on a magnet tray to keep everything. I'm just going to put it right here on this magnet tray. So take off this nut here. I believe it's a 13 millimeter. So I just zip that off. Yeah, it's a 13 millimeter. Zip that off and push that out. You might need to pop it with a mallet or something. Then we're going to take those 4 bolts out, and you see that box I got underneath there? I'm going to put the camera underneath here. There's 2 bolts in the back. This one's broken, obviously. And there's another bolt there. So you take those off, and then you have, there's the other side. I already took the nuts off of that side. And so then you got 2 on the front, and this one's all nasty. I'm going to use my air here in a second to there's 2 on the front, and they're on the top of this frame, and the nuts are, luckily they're welded in place, but this means you got to extract these things from the top, and there's really limited room, so I always just go from the top again, take out that same little plastic piece. You might have to cut some cables with some zip ties. And I use some air to make it where I can see the bolts. There's 2 of them. Take a 15 millimeter. And the way I always do it, I use a swivel, and I use a 1/2 inch impact. They're pretty tight. These are pretty tight. So the DCF 901 is not going to do it. You're going to have to break out something bigger, especially running that many extensions. So they're kind of, if you use a swivel, if you take that little piece out right there, that makes it a lot easier. Get that out of the way, push that through, and then break out your high torque 1/2 inch impact, and that'll zip those bolts right on out. Makes it a lot easier. I mean, that's probably about 14 inches of extension. Then one other thing you want to do before you take this, you want to just take a 5/16 and loosen up the clamps on the hoses that go from the tank, the reservoir tank, and I recommend using some air or something to get all this clean. And then you can just take out these last 4 bolts. Now I make a mistake, and I'm going to show you guys in a moment. I take out these 4 bolts. Now you got there's 3 or 4 different lengths of bolts here. I'm going to show you guys here in a second. So you got the long one that goes on the back side, on the inner side of that bracket there. So you got a longer one, and that one, that third one I just grabbed, that goes on the front. Those 2 that we just extracted from the front. And then you have 2 other ones that go on the back, and I've left those, I've just taken the nuts off the back at this point. I've left the bolts actually in place, and you'll see why in a second. So take these 4 bolts all the way out. And the nuts are all the same, and these are all 15 millimeters. And just keep track of the length of the bolts. So you see how it drops down a little bit? So now it's resting on that frame for those 2 front bolts. Now we just got to go back. And that's why I've left those other bolts in there. Sometimes I'll leave a nut on one of those bolts on the back. I'm going to reposition the camera so you guys can see better. Now, I made a mistake while doing this, and hopefully you don't make this mistake. So the neutral, the little lever that you pull for the neutral, I left that sticking out past that frame. Now, right now, and I'll break that here in a second and I'll show you. So right now I'm lifting up and I'm going to push these bolts up. Now this one on the outer side, you can pull through. Now normally if this bolt wasn't broken, you can't pull it all the way through. You just have to kind of leave it in that top frame. So I push up on the hydro, I pull that bolt up. And so really my hand right here is supporting the back, and it should just drop on down onto this cardboard box. But this is where I make a mistake. So I'm wondering right now, why is it not dropping like it normally does? And it normally just drops, plops. And I'm thinking, okay, it's because it's still on that hydraulic hose. And you can see it fell, and then I realized, oh crap, I just broke the little lever. I see that I broke it. So, but anyway, I'm going to be resealing this transmission anyway, but there it is, the little neutral lever. I left that sticking out past into that frame, and it got hung up. So you need to move that in. You can't even see it right now. It's so clogged up and dirty. But you'll see it here in a moment. Just make sure that's not getting hung up when you pull that thing out. All right, so here it is on the workbench. I got both of them. There's that pulley and the fan. I'm just going to show you guys how that fan goes. I already took the fan off the other side and that pulley. I'm going to show you how you take that off. So it just takes a 15 millimeter. These wiggle right off. Now these pulleys right here, they're pressed on. Even though it has a keyway right there into that shaft, these don't have a keyway in there. These are pressed on. So if you don't have a puller, here's one little trick that I do. Find you a clean spot, and I've done this with the hydros still in the mower. Find you a good spot. I'm right on top of that plug with that first punch, if you notice, but I don't care because I'm going to replace that plug anyway. So basically what I'm doing is I'm applying some pressure, and I want to go like right across from each other. So I'm going to tap this chisel in. And I'm trying my best not to apply too much pressure and mess up that pulley, but I got a way to fix that, and I'll show you here in a second. So I'm tapping that thing in, and I'm applying, pressure equally, like say 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock. So now I got quite a bit of pressure just with those chisels. Put your nut back on so you don't mess up the threads, and you want to leave a little bit of a gap there. Just enough for that pulley to knock up a little bit, and then tap with a hammer. And right now I'm having to add a little bit more pressure. Sometimes that thing will just pop right off. You'll see how I'm bending that thing? It pops right off right there. So now it's loose, and I've bent the pulley a little bit, but not a big deal. I can fix that real easy. I'll show you here in just a moment. So you guys are about to see a lot of buildup underneath this pulley here. So now I can just pull that off. And a lot of times, see how I bent that pulley? We'll fix that in a moment. Look at all that buildup, all that dirt, oily dirt. And a lot of times grass, like weeds or just whatever, rope, string, shirts, everything will get clogged up in there, spinning around, and it'll mess up that seal. So this one, it looks like that thing may have been spinning on that shaft. I'm not sure. Maybe it got hot. Looks like maybe it did. I'm looking now for signs that it was spinning on there. But I'm going to go ahead. I know it's leaking, so I'm going to go ahead and pressure wash these things off. And real quick, I'm going to show you how I fixed that pulley. See how it's bent right there? So get you a pair of vice grips and something like a table that you can vice grip equally on each side. And this isn't the best workbench to do it on, but it's good enough. It doesn't take a lot. And I'm using a bolt, and notice I'm using the head to reach down in there, and I'm going to hammer this down against that surface. So watch what I do here. Got it clamped down, and using the head of that bolt reaches inside of that pulley, and that inside of that groove a little better. And then I just take I don't know what size hammer that is, and I just hammer it, tap it down. Real easy. So now I got to do the other side, so I'll unclamp it. I got to find where that groove is. And then this way you can just it'll help you find the imperfections. Just twist it on top of that surface and look down. So there's the other side. I'm going to fix that. It's not nearly as bad. And that'll work great. Alright, so I got it all pressure washed, and you see how dry rotted these plugs are? That's the plug. And you see how dry rotted that seal is? A lot of times, like I said, twine, rope, and stuff will tear up those seals. And I mean, just dry rot. Sometimes if that shaft starts wiggling like I thought this one was, I've seen those pulleys get into that other plug and cause it to leak. So on this side, this is the one that is giving trouble, not working. So I'm assuming I'm going to have to, and I broke the little thing right there, the neutral lever. You can see it now. So I'm going to have to order one of those, but no big deal. I'm going to open this thing up anyway. And you want to flip it upside down. I'm draining all the rest of the oil out. And you want to always take these things off upside down. If you do not take that thing out. Don't take these bolts loose with it still right side up underneath in your mower. You've got to take them out, otherwise gears and things are going to fall all over the place. So these all take a 12 millimeter. This is a pretty thick impact socket. I have to switch over to a thinner one here in a moment. But I take out, these are the two plugs. Those are the two drain plugs. And then you have two bolts here that are in the middle, and then all the rest of them are just on the outside, and there are a bunch of different links, so just keep track of them. And if you're ever doing something, here's the little thinner socket to get on these other side. Using my DCF 901 12 volt half-inch impact, does a great job here. Using some real thin walled Husky cheap impact sockets. So I take them out and I place them in order, and I always mark which hole, or just, I always start at like a top left corner or something, and I lay the bolts out in order so I know which one goes where. Then you take these two out in the center, and they're quite a bit longer. And so there's two pry points on this thing. You can pry it right here, and you can pry it right there on the, I guess this is the front of the hydro. So once you get it, pry it, crack it loose, pry it loose. And I'm wiggling this thing loose, and I pry it loose. There's the filter. And my buddy Tyler comes up, and we start looking at all the carnage going on. You got gears chewed up, bearing balls all in it, gears messed up, the housing's messed up. There's one of the bearings. That's the bearing. This is one of the magnets that catches a bunch of debris. So look at these magnets. So that one's right above this filter. So if you take that plug out when you're redoing those filters, you can reach in there and feel with your finger if there's any metal. I didn't think about that. Next time I'm going to do that, because I didn't see any metal in that oil. But man, I would have felt that. I would have felt that metal and I would have known something is going on. But with it just acting the way it did, I just wanted to open this thing up. I knew I was going to have to remove them from the mower anyway to reseal it. But you can put those seals in without cracking this thing open. But you do have to, crack it open to replace the wear plates, which are in here, which I thought that's what that's what I thought this was going to need. But this thing's going to need to be replaced. Now this is the other side. I went ahead and cracked it loose. This is clean magnets on it. I mean, just has a little bit of sludge like you would expect. Nothing out of the ordinary. No signs of damage anywhere. Looking pretty good, operating good. And so worst case scenario, I'll just have to reseal this up. But to give an accurate quote for this customer, I'd hate for them to spend $2,000 on a new hydro. Here's the sealant if you need to reseal this thing. That stuff's great. And you have to go all through here. It's not cleaning this thing out is the worst part to reseal it. Well, unfortunately for that customer, that's the worst case scenario for that hydro, to have that kind of damage. So in this video, basically it's just kind of showing you what was going on, what I found. And here it'll probably be about another week or two before I probably end up putting a new hydro in it. This customer may end up just trading that in, and we'll end up fixing it for either a loaner machine or to one we'll fix it up to resell it. But either way, it's going to get a new hydro, and I'll make a video on how to reinstall one. But in the future, what you could do, what I should have done when I took out that plug to put the filters in when I was doing the hydro oil change, I should have reached underneath there, right above the plug that takes the 3/8 ratchet to get to the filter. You could reach in there and feel around with your finger and feel if there's any metal, because I saw no metal in the oil, saw no metal on the filter. Those magnets were catching it. So hope you'll like the video, subscribe. Hope this helps you guys out. If you need to take one of those things out, it's not a big deal. Just take your time, be safe, and get it all clean, and you'll be fine. So anyway, hope you'll like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.